And since we've got a brand new activity, we're going to start with those learning targets. You've got it. Go ahead and just use those learning targets. Let's figure out what we'll be practicing with this activity. So we've got two major focus points of activity 1A. First, you're going to be analyzing a specific archetype. And we know that we're looking at the hero's journey archetype. You're really going to be focusing on the final stage, which is called the return. And the second practice of this activity, you're going to be drafting the final event or the final steps of your narrative. So if you take a look with me at the board right now, you've already taken care of your exposition. That was the index card. You've taken care of your rising action and your climax. That was last week. And then we did the peer review. So this activity, we're going to be formulating what is your falling action and finally your resolution. All right, that's what we'll be focusing on tomorrow. So right below those learning targets, we've got these 3 before reading questions. Now I'm going to have you set something up real quick first. Underneath the first question, go ahead and write down the numbers 1 through 4, just to make stuff easier for yourself. Now, all 3 of the before reading questions have to deal with the return stage. So on the screen right now, it says for you to use page 17 and 18. So go ahead, keep your finger on this page, but just do a quick rewind so you can see why I'm bringing you back to a previous page. 17 and 18 is where the hero's journey archetype is at, but specifically that's where you're going to find the steps of the return stage. You'll find those 4 steps. So I'm going to give you 2.5 minutes to go ahead and answer these 3 questions by yourself the best that you can with the time that's given. All right, so take about 2.5 minutes to answer those 3 before reading questions. Okay, now I'm just going to go over really quick 2 of those questions for you. So the first question that I'm going to go over was number 1, the 4 steps. In case you're ever stuck where you can't recall what the steps of the hero's journey are, don't forget there's 2 spots in this room where they're listed. So the whiteboard where I'm currently at, all the 4 steps are listed where I'm standing, but also that flat chart right below the American flag has them too. All right, so those 4 steps would be the refusal of a return, the magic flight, rescue from without, and last but not least, the crossing, or also known as the return to the threshold. All right, now the next piece I want to go over with you is question 2, the whole purpose. Now, whether or not you have the answer, I do want to give you one more piece of info to write down. So I do want you to write down as one of the reasons behind the final stage, the hero learns the reason or lesson behind their journey. So the purpose of the final stage is the reason or the lesson associated with the journey. We know the beginning of the adventure, they were given a purpose for this journey. It's at the very end where they really truly learn a lesson behind why they did all of this work. Okay? So we're going to get one more item started before we actually read. Right at the bottom of your page, we have this step 4 that's telling us what we have to do while we're reading. So I'm going to ask you to go ahead and pull out a highlighter if you haven't already. No big deal if you don't have one, you guys just underline, circle with your pen or pencil. We've got 2 tasks behind reading this piece, and they're going to show up in step 4. You'll see them highlighted on the screen. Just make the same markings yourself. So the first thing that we have to do while reading the story, you're going to mark the text for these final steps of the hero's journey. So somewhere in this excerpt, all 4 of those return stage steps are going to appear. And the second thing that you're going to do while reading is you're going to highlight the transitions in the piece that are sequencing the character. So where are they starting? What's their next step? How are they getting there? So they could be really simple transitions like then or next. They could get a little bit more complex as well. Now, to make things a little bit easier for you with marking the text, I really want you to focus on only using the highlighter for transitions. And I want you to use your pen or your pencil for actually marking the steps of the hero's journey. So you're going to see some stuff pop up in red for a key, and I'm going to ask you to use this key as well in your springboard. So to make things a little bit easier for you, I'm going to have you bracket the areas in the text where you see those 4 steps of the return stage appear. And instead of writing the whole step out, instead we're going to use abbreviations. So for example, when we see the refusal of the return possibly appearing, we'll bracket that information in. So it might be a couple of paragraphs that we bracket together, and then we'll use the abbreviation of RR, refusal of return. Okay, the same thing applies for Magic Flight. We'll bracket in the chunk of the text. We'll write MS next to it. That will stand for Magic Flight. We'll bracket in the text for Rescue from Without, and we'll write RW. And last but not least, bracket in the text for the crossing. We'll mark it with a C. So you're not going to be writing a whole lot, per se, in this actual excerpt. I'm only going to see a few markings and some highlighted text, and that's it, just to make things a little bit easier for you. All right, now before we actually read the excerpt, all the way at the top of page 43, you've got this little bit of a prologue, for lack of a better term. And it's written in a little bit of a larger font, and it's explaining where in the story we're currently at before we actually read this final excerpt. So could someone please read just that little prologue right behind the title for us? Go for it, Chloe.
This excerpt comes near the end of Meg Murray's journey, when she has found her father and they escaped Camazotz, but they were forced to leave behind her younger brother Charles Wallace in the city of the Black Thing. Now Meg must return to Camazotz together.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so I'm going to have you highlight a couple of things here. First thing I want you to highlight is the sentence about Meg finding her father and escaping Camazotz. Okay, this was actually the entire purpose of Meg and her brother starting this journey. So I'm going to have you mark a note about that particular line in the My Notes column. I want you to write down that this particular sentence is explaining the ultimate boon of Meg's journey. Okay, this was the main reason why we found her and her brothers so many activities ago in the weird town with the weird creepy kids and the creepy moms. They were going through this town to try and find their father. And where they were at was this land, Camazotz. Okay, and then we're given another piece of information about the story before we begin reading it. Meg is planning to return to Camazotz to get her brother. So this actual sentence is hinting that this is one of the 4 final steps. So her returning to this land, it could possibly be an explanation of the refusal of the return, why Meg maybe would not want to go home. It could be her explanation behind her magic flight, what is going to be her final challenge or task. It could be explaining her rescue from without, so who is that person or thing that's supporting her in this final challenge. Maybe it's also her crossing as well, her return home, her learning a lesson. So what I'm going to be having you folks do with this piece, I'm not going to read it aloud to you, unlike the other times that I did. Now, the reason for that, this piece is pretty long. I'm going to have you work on it by yourself for a bit, and then I'm going to have you double up with someone. So you'll be able to partner up with somebody. But I do want to help you out a little bit. So on each page, I'm going to be giving you a hint about one of the steps. And I'm going to have you write that hint down. It'll make more sense when you see it, okay? So standing on this page, on page 43, you see that text in yellow? I want you to copy that text down at the bottom of page 43. So again, we're copying down the yellow text, the yellow hint, at the bottom of page 43, just to make things a little bit easier for you since I'm asking you to essentially complete this on your own. So my hint to you about identifying one of the 4 steps on this page, one of the steps is implied here. So it's not directly stated, it's not obvious per se, but it's implied that it has happened. Once you've got that note, just flip to page 44. I'm going to give you a hint for page 44. Okay, so here's your hint for page 44. In this page, one of the steps is slightly revealed, so it's not 100%, but it's definitely being pushed towards you. It's going to appear shortly, but this page is preparing you for that step. So again, it's a slight reveal. It's not 100% the step is available, but it's happening. It's coming close. It's coming soon. All right, page 45. This is where that referred to step on page 44 is actually confirmed. So on page 45, you are going to have a step. It is going to be pretty obvious when it shows up. Again, page 44 kind of prepped you for it. It was hinted at. It was implied. It happens on page 45. All right, there's 2 more pages of this story. That's why I'm not reading this one to you because it's really long. All right, so page 46, my hint. A step is confirmed on page 46, so you should have a definite step here. It was briefed in the introduction on page 43, so you kind of have it already in the back of your head what this thing is, but you can confirm it on page 46. It is this step 100%. And page 47, this is going to be the obvious one. Page 47, there's a step here. It's the end of the actual story of A Wrinkle in Time. It's the end of Meg's journey. So you could probably even right now be like, yeah, I know what step it's going to be. All right, so what I'm going to have you folks do is I'm going to give you about 12 minutes to work by yourself. So you're reading the story on your own. You're highlighting for transitions. You're deciding what possibly could be these steps and you're marking them. When those 12 minutes are up, I'll then give you some time to work with a partner, okay? But for right now, I want you to take 12 minutes, independently, read through this as best as you can and as far as you can, and start identifying what might be the steps of Meg's final leg of her journey.